Conversation, and on this second part of the conversation we'll be talking about the Deaf Awareness Week. Remember, it is a week that is being marked, and we will be talking about quite a number of issues, including the challenges that they face and of course what we need to understand about this annual event that is being marked in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. So what is different this time around? What are some of the issues that form the theme for this annual event? But before that, allow me now to just preempt the conversation that we will be having in this first part of the interview. And it is a step that has seen the 12th Parliament facing a constitutional dilemma after the CJ wrote to the President advising for the dissolution of Parliament for failing to implement the 2/3 gender law as per the Constitution. So yesterday, in a letter that is likely to revive the legislature-judiciary rivalry, the Chief Justice says Parliament has blatantly failed, refused or neglected to pass the law despite 4 court orders. This now puts the President in a position that is quite, confusing amid mounting pressure for Parliament to approve the gender law 10 years after the promulgation of the Constitution. Let's just take a look at this report that was filed by our very own Kevin Washira, just to bring us up to speed with what this later is all about, and just to take us back down memory lane, just to look at the journey of the implementation of the 2/3 gender rule. Then we come back and kickstart our conversation.
Parliament finds itself at a crossroad after Chief Justice David Maraga took an unprecedented step to advise the President to dissolve Parliament as per Article 261, Section 7, which stipulates if Parliament fails to enact legislation in accordance with the law, the Chief Justice shall advise the President to dissolve Parliament and the President shall dissolve Parliament. In the advisory, the Chief Justice pointed out he had considered 6 petitions questioning the constitutionality of Parliament, having failed to enact the law for more than a decade. The petitions were presented by LSK, Margaret Toili, Frederick Gishanga, Stephen Owoko, John Wangai, Aoko Bernard, and David Sudi, seeking to have Parliament dissolved. The petitioners argued that the mechanism for the dissolution of Parliament, irrespective of the consequences, is the radical remedy that Kenyans desired in order to incentivize the political elites to adhere to and fully operationalize the transformational agenda of the Constitution. The Chief Justice pointed out he had written to the speakers of both houses on the same, but failed to receive tangible reasons for failure to enact the legislation. But in a rejoinder, National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi has dismissed Maraga's call for dissolution of Parliament as unrealistic. In a statement, Muturi says dissolution of Parliament will necessitate a by-election in all constituencies. Given the expensive nature of elections, there does not appear to be any good reason for insisting on dissolution of Parliament. End of quote. The enactment of the 2/3 gender principle was among the things Parliament was supposed to do within 5 years after the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010, but this have not happened 10 years later. Focus now shifts to the President, who is expected to dissolve Parliament. Legally, there is no stipulated timeline within which the President should dissolve Parliament. It is now a game of wait and see. What next, with the fate of the 12th Parliament now lying in the hands of the President? Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
All right, so that is a report that was filed by Kevin Washira, just explaining more about the advisory that was issued by the Chief Justice David Kenani Maraga to President Uhuru Kenyatta, advising him to dissolve Parliament for what he terms as a failure to implement the 2/3 gender rule. And now we want to just cross over to the interview that we are having. But I want to first of all take you to Machakos County just to listen in to what something that the Ministry of ICT is currently undertaking. Let's listen in to the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board, Ezekiel Mutua, addressing that particular gathering.
Throughout the processes that we're handling, including now managing our key performance indicators, pursuing our performance contract for this financial year, but more importantly, trying every day to align ourselves to the new normal and ensure that we deliver service. And I want to assure you that will make you proud as an institution by our professionalism and integrity. One of the things that you can be proud of is that in our work, and I always say this, Chairman, I'm going to 5 years at KFCB, I have never one single day contravened a law or looked the other way for personal gain to allow a film that should not have been allowed into the country, to issue a license that should not have been issued, or even to take decision that should not have been taken according to the law. When we had disputes with the industry, we resorted to go to court. We went to court against Kenyan breweries, and you'll be hearing this if you stay with us for a bit longer. And people were saying this is unheard of. And that time, the issue was whether Kenya Film Classification Board has the mandate to regulate TV programs and adverts. And actually, even many stakeholders were of the view that the mandate of the board was cinematographic. But we were so professional, led by our legal office and the management, to understand that the definition of film in Kenya Film Classification Board is audiovisual. And so whether it is 2 seconds or 1 minute, it is audiovisual. So we went to court, and for 6 months we were in court, and we won with costs. The other time when we banned the gay-themed movie Rafiki, it was the same thing, and the world went ballistic, and it was accusations and condemnation. But we understand the law and our mandate so well that we allow, where there's a dispute, that we go to court and get the courts to determine and give us a ruling on those issues. And I can tell you so far, we've never lost a case. We've been on the winning streak because of the professionalism of this board of directors and the management. And I want to assure you that as you go back to the ministry, you can give that report that we are not as bad as we look sometimes when people read about us out there. They think Mutua just reads the Bible with the chairman, and it doesn't even help matters that my chairman is a bishop. So they think we sit in the Bible and read Deuteronomy. Thou shalt not watch pornography, and we ban. I tell you what, the lady who causes us all those problems is a young lady, our examination and classification manager. Redemptor, please stand up. I wish you can even come here, Redemptor. This is very special. Please come. Redemptor Amondi is our examination and classification officer. A very young girl. She got married the other day, and God is gracious. She even got a baby. She got married. She's that young. She's this lady is the one who will not allow me to say something I shouldn't. If she bans a film, because she's the head of examination and the classification, she tells me your work, CEO, is to announce the decision of the panel. It's not to rate again. You have no power. And in a panel, she always ensures that there's an odd number so that they can reach a decision and there's a tiebreaker. And in fact, we have gone ahead to give her, under the law, the board has allowed co-option of external film examiners who work under our department, who are not members of the board and they are not employees of the board. These are lawyers, these are educationists, psychologists, so that there is objectivity in the decisions that she makes and brings to me to announce as the spokesperson of the organization. So for those who did not know, and for the avoidance of doubt, although she's in a mask, Redemptor Amondi is the one who heads examination and classification. The other day, actually, she banned a gay-themed Indian film, a very expensive film. And she brought it to me, Chairman. I don't even know whether you have heard about it. There's a film we banned recently, and there was no complaint this time round. People have begun to respect the decisions that come from that quarters. And so, Redemptor, I just wanted to, in a positive way, embarrass you for embarrassing me, and for people to know the person who makes the decisions. Now, you'll be surprised, Madam CAS, that in the board, in the examination team, we have all manner of ages. There are guys that were 70-something, 84. We have an 84, all right? But we also have 22. We have all cultures, including Goans, they're Indians because of the Bollywood films. There are all manner of people in our board. So those external film examiners are a variety, a blend of gender, age, discipline, professional disciplines, and so on. We are as professional as it can get. And the person who bans the films, You can now go in the 6th. So I thought that is.
That is Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board, currently speaking in a meeting that will see the KFCB just assess how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the creative industry, and also the board, according to information we're receiving, is in the process of looking at how to recover the sector post-COVID-19. They're going to be coming up with quite a number of strategies that are going to ensure recovery in the creative sector and the broadcast sector post-COVID-19. We will be getting back to that particular function that is currently happening at the Hilton Gardens in Machakos County later on. But allow me now begin our conversation in studio. We are talking about the advisory that was issued by the Chief Justice David Maraga yesterday to President Uhuru Kenyatta to dissolve Parliament for failure to implement the 2/3 gender rule. This morning, I'm hosting a panel of 2 gentlemen just to help us have a deeper perspective of this particular subject. I'll begin by the gentleman on my far left. He's Martin Andati, a political analyst. Thank you so much, Martin. It's always a pleasure to have you on board. And of course, we are having Henry Karauka. He's a constitutional lawyer. Thank you so much also for giving us this opportunity to borrow into your legal mind on this particular subject.
Thank you very much. My pleasure as well.
All right. So we want to begin straight away, and I always like to begin from the quick thoughts of what came into your mind yesterday when many have termed that as an unexpected move by the CJ, David Maraga, issuing that particular advisory to President Uhuru Kenyatta. Of course, it's constitutional, but not many envisioned that it could happen at this particular time. So what did you think about when you saw that particular letter? Let me begin with you, Martin.
Serfine, we are a country of selective amnesia. You know, if you go to the archives, look at YouTube, the shows, past shows we've done on this station and other stations. This issue has been debated, and we are on record warning that if Parliament does not perform its duty, somebody will move to court and petition the Chief Justice to dissolve Parliament. And that is exactly what has happened. So, you know, the Constitution 2010, we've said it's one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. And I think there's even we should not be in a hurry to do some of those amendments, because you can see it has a lot of mechanisms for making sure that we activate and actualize it. So Parliament, the Senate and the National Assembly have been sleeping on the job. And you know, it's not just about the 2/3 gender rule. There are even the land regulations. You remember the minimum and maximum acreage they were supposed to enact. Parliament has not done that. You saw the other day in the Senate, we had the stalemate over the revenue to be allocated to counties. And you know, that formula was prepared almost 2 years ago. We debated it, and people slept on the job. There was no engagement. There was no, CRA did their work. The people in Senate slept. And you know, they are paid very well. They even have researchers employed by the taxpayer to help them think through some of those issues. They didn't. So they wait the last minute, then they now start wrangling, you know. So look at the mess it has created in the counties. You know, for 2-3 months, counties had no money to function. And it took the threats by the chairman of the Council of Governors that they were going to shut down the counties, and the intervention of the president for them to do what they are supposed to do. And you see, there are even regulations concerning the equalization fund, which are supposed to have been enacted by Senate, because you need those regulations to be, for you to be able to operationalize the equalization fund. It has never happened. You need the regulations in the lands issue. You remember there was a stalemate between the National Land Commission and the ministry, because some of the regulations which were supposed to have been enacted by Parliament have not been enacted. So basically, the senators and the members of Parliament have been sleeping on the job.
All right.
And this is a very good wake-up call by Maraga. The only question is, will the president dissolve Parliament?
And that is exactly what we are going to be talking about, just looking at the dynamics that are going to be shaping that particular decision by the president, whichever direction he chooses to go in this particular matter. But also your opening remarks, Henry, the CJ said that he has indeed considered 6 petitions that are questioning the constitutionality of the legislature. What do you think about his step to advise the president that now it's time for us to consider, maybe dissolving parliament?
My view is that our Chief Justice did the right thing. In fact, it was long overdue. He should have done it many years ago. Our Constitution was very clear. The timelines were given for enacting various legal legislations. Some were enacted, others were not enacted. The supreme power of this country vests in the people of Kenya under Article 1, Sub-Article 1. And that is what the CJ did yesterday. Now, the mantle now goes to the president, who is given powers to dissolve parliament. He doesn't have an option because the Constitution is very clear. Once recommendation is made, he shall. That creates a mandatory obligation. However, the Constitution did not give a timeline to do so. And that gives the president a leeway to have his luxury of time to do so. He may opt to await until 2022, just before the term of the current parliament expires by operation of law, which provides that parliament shall dissolve at least 90 days prior to the general elections. So he may need to wait, because nobody can force him to do so unless someone petitions to court. Another issue that arises is, do we have the gender laws in operation now? That has been a serious and complicated issue because of politics, because of culture, because of our leaders. It has been difficult to enact that law. For county assemblies, for our counties, it has been very clear. The top-up of nominated MCAs were able to remedy any challenge that arises when voters choose one gender over the other and the rule is not achieved. Now, the same should apply to our parliament, the Senate, and also the National Assembly. Now, we have a challenge because the Constitution provides for a maximum of 290 elected members of parliament, and the senators that we have 47 and other nominated. Now, we need to rectify that and create a framework of maybe nominating more members from the weaker or rather than disadvantaged gender to fill or rather to compensate the remainder. So it's a challenge.
It's good that you've painted that picture on what we need to do to remedy that situation, say for what is happening at the county level. But yesterday when this, the advisory was issued, in some of the arguments that were coming forth as, legal experts and even politicians were sharing their thoughts on this. Some of the issues that were coming on the table was the fact that, if we go the direction of nominating or probably creating some slots so that we can create a balance in terms of the gender, then we could just be interfering with the rights of the citizens in terms of voting whichever leader that they want to serve them. I don't know how you look at that, Martin. That by nominating, it's sort of like we are imposing leaders on the voters.
Achieng, for as long as the law has not been repealed, that is the law the way it is. You might not agree with it, you might not even like it, but that is the law. So the Constitution is very clear. Have they repealed that clause? They haven't. So you don't wait when now it hits you. Then you say that it's a bad law. Because they have had the opportunity. They should have repealed it if they realize that they are not happy with it. There is even the recall clause in the Constitution, and we have not activated. And we are going to activate it very soon. And that's when you will see MPs and senators and governors go home. You saw the other day even the impeachment. You know, people never used to imagine that you can impeach a governor until Waititu went home. You know, and ceremoniously, he was governor in the evening. I met him in the morning. I met him in town, and in the evening, he was an ordinary Kenyan. You know, people never used to think that MCAs have any power. In fact, nobody ever believed that you can impeach a governor because of the kind of money and power they wield. But we saw it happen in Kiambu, and the guy lost the seat, and that is it. So this constitution is very progressive, and you know, all these clauses were put in with a reason, because we had to put in checks and balances. We had to put in these clauses to safeguard, because there was an expectation that certain interests will not want certain laws enacted. So to safeguard against that, that is why some of those clauses were being put. And there are quite a number of safeguards, you know. Even the threshold, you can see, like the one, if you want to change the structure of government, you have got to go to the masses. And you have to do that after collecting 1 million signatures. Because, you see, the past has informed some of this thinking. You remember the constitution, the Lancaster constitution of 1963. We had Majimbo. Kenyatta came in as a prime minister. But we became a republic, and he became president without going through an election, which was an anomaly. We had Senate, which we killed, you know. Then after killing Senate and creating special seats for those members of parliament, for the senators then we came in now and brought, we killed the devolution. So all these, to safeguard all this, the past experience is what made the drafters of the constitution try to put as many safeguards as possible, so that whoever tries to refuse to implement or operationalize certain sections of the law would suffer the consequences. And that is one of the consequences. So you can see members of parliament are in shock. And you've seen the speaker there, he's in denial. Because whatever, you know, he knows if parliament is dissolved, he loses his lucrative job. So but naturally he will not support it, you know.
But even if we are exploring these possibilities of whether Parliament will be dissolved or not, what is the safeguard then for this lacuna that has been presented by the lack of the timeline for the President to act upon this particular advisory? Because you've talked about the Constitution having quite a number of safeguards. We are finding ourselves in a point where we really do not know what is going to happen. Is there any safeguard that addresses this specific lacuna?
Yes, there are many clauses in our Constitution that do not have timelines. We are very lucky because, like, for example, approval of CSs, approval of constitutional offices, bearers,
even
approval
appointment of judges.
For appointment of judges. Unfortunately, there was no timeline. For bills of parliament, once the president receives them, he is under legal obligation to approve, to assent, or reject with recommendations within 14 days. If he doesn't do so, after 14 days, it becomes law automatically. So unlike the American system, we do not have pocket bills in Kenya where the president can just decide to keep a bill and wait and take his sweet time and all that. So we do not have that luxury in bills of parliament. The same should have been extended to dissolution of parliament.
Did we overlook?
I think the drafters did not expect the president to do otherwise. They thought maybe putting the word shall, which is mandatory.
Obligates the president
to act upon. Shall act upon it. Because we are, you know, the president is an employee of the people of Kenya. And the doctrines of constitutionalism, where there should be interplay of various state organs to protect the rights and the rule of law, shouldn't be applied. I agree with my brother Martin. When it comes to the law, once there is a law and a constitutional provision, it must be obeyed. Unfortunately, for our politicians, or maybe our culture, they give weight to what the law ought to be and not what the law says. So they give the law their own interpretations. And my view is this. What happened yesterday? We love political angle. The president will have to make a lot of political considerations. But I think Maraga also gave our president a very powerful weapon, a very powerful tool to whip our MPs to adhere to his agenda.
Thank you for saying that, because I was just about to query you on something, Henry. You were quoted in one of the online articles, just saying, talking about that specific subject, you say that Justice Maraga has given President Uhuru Kenyatta a perfect tool to whip MPs to support his agenda. I want you to talk more about that, looking at the politics that is shaping the country right now. What is it about dissolving or not dissolving Parliament that will work to the advantage of President Uhuru Kenyatta from where you sit?
First, our president is not a member of Parliament. In the former years, the president was a member of Parliament. So dissolving Parliament would automatically dissolve the presidency until a new elections are done. What I meant is that right now, the president will have more powers in terms of pushing his agenda on MPs. The MPs are now under the mercy of our president. Because if today Uhuru decides to dissolve Parliament, it will be perfectly done. All MPs will be sent home. They will be jobless, like many other Kenyans. And it will be very difficult for most of them to come back. So the truth of the matter is, if the president decides to push BBI agenda, to push other agenda, then Parliament will have to agree with him. Because he has a red card. I would call it a red card for the football fans. They know what a red card means. He can remove it from his pocket anytime.
I don't know if you share the same view, Martin. Just add your thoughts. Do you think, he stands a chance to gain by dissolving Parliament?
The way Wakili has said, it gives the president a lot of room. He actually has now a stick to wear against Parliament. And, there has been talk in the air that there is going to be a major shake-up in terms of cabinet, in the executive. And, there were fears around the presidency that they might meet some resistance in Parliament. But you see now, if the president brings those changes, the MPs will have to approve, even the vetting. Because if they try to refuse, he sends them home. So they have very little leeway. And he will also use that, if he were to dissolve Parliament, then, you have to buy on party tickets. He is the leader of Jubilee. Some of those fellas who have been causing trouble for him, you can imagine they decide they are not going to give the likes of Oscar Sudi the Jubilee tickets. Then, right now, from our history, 80% of the MPs normally lose elections. So most of the sitting MPs, including senators, are very unpopular and they are going to lose elections, and they know it. Two, most of them have, in fact, all of them have taken loans. They have mortgages, they have car loans, they have all sorts of loans. And now, they are not making money because the conferences are not there, the trips out there are not there because of COVID. So the only money they are making is a mileage. So they don't have money to go and campaign. And campaigns are very expensive. You are unpopular on the ground. So they are terrified, So nobody wants to go and face the electorate. And the electorate are also now salivating for an opportunity to eat. So you can imagine if you have been against the president and you are supposed to vie on his ticket, he has a right of denying you the ticket. So you will not vie on that ticket. Two, the main parties in the country are Raila has his ODM, Musalia has his NC, Kalonzo has Wiper, then you have Jubilee, which is the president. So you can imagine MPs going out there without the support. Because quite a number of them normally, once you have the ticket, you are as good as elected. Now you are running without the support of the presidential candidate. So it becomes very difficult because you are basically on your own. You have to fund the campaign on your own. You have to create your own platform to be able to sell your agenda to the people, which is not easy. So it creates quite a bit of a challenge for those MPs. And they will...
So this may just be a way of pushing them to the wall.
It has pushed them to the wall. And I'm very sure quite a number of them last night didn't sleep.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Looking at the interest of Wanjiku, now that, you know, this is a chance for, you know, the MPs to be pushed to the wall to play along with the game and dance to the tune. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's an opportunity to clean up the system so that people know that this constitution is good. It's one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. And they need to know that it can bite. And they need to know that if you are given a job, you must do it. Because the roles of an MP are very clear, you know. So you are supposed to legislate, you are supposed to oversight and represent. So if you are not legislating, what are you doing? They are not supposed to, in fact, to be involved in issues of running CDF, which was even declared unconstitutional, but they looked for a backdoor way of bringing it back so that they manage it. So they are not focusing on their main role. And you know, if you do proper oversight, look at even the money that we have lost in COVID. Look at the money we are losing in the scandals. The civil society reports have told us that we lose almost a third of the budget through wastage, through corruption, so if there is proper oversight and we have functional institutions, we will have very little money being stolen. And if you have very little money being stolen, it means most of the money that goes into services will be able to reach the masses, and you will have very few people coming to you to seek for handouts, you know. But you see, most of those fellas don't understand. Two, if you are doing good laws, Engineer Karwe brought the CDF Act. One person, but see what it has done. Look at a good law, look at devolution. You do it through legislation. So if you are doing that work, the MP adds more value, or the MCA or the senator adds more value by doing the role they are supposed to be doing, not running all over seeking for tenders, not running all over trying to cut deals here and there. And that way, you will be able to have the country really growing. All
right, it's an opportunity to clean up the system, and it is also offering us an opportunity to know that the Constitution can bite. Yes. Strong words there. But then again, for many who may be asking themselves, let's assume the president decides to dissolve parliament, then what next? It's not the first time this is happening. In 1966, we sort of went through a similar process when Senate was dissolved to have, you know, it combined with the House of Representatives and form a unicameral National Assembly. It is something that is not common, but it can happen. It has happened before in our country. But then in case it happens, what next? Is it a general election? Is it a by-election? Will it affect only the Senate and the members of Parliament, or we go all the way? There are people who could be asking themselves those questions at this particular time.
If that happens, it is not a general election. The general election entails presidential elections, governorial elections, and parliamentary and ward elections. Now, if our president decides to dissolve parliament today, what we will be having is by-election, but massive by-elections in the form of elections in every constituency, that is the 290 constituencies.
Plus the 47.
And many people are asking, what will happen? The government will continue to operate because the executive is not part of parliament. The president is not part of parliament. Okay. The ministers are not MPs, and so on. Now, if the president is kind enough to do so, then the National Assembly, the Senate, will have to seek fresh mandate. And that must take place within 90 days of dissolution. So if the president dissolves parliament today, we expect elections to be held by December this year. So we have a fresh start, new leaders. And as my brother Martin says, the voters out there are very dissatisfied with most leaders that we elected because they are not services. They are not doing their work right. You find 90% of their time they spend politicking, not addressing the issues of Wanjiku, Achieng, Makena, and all that. So we need a fresh start. And I hope our president will have to, use that opportunity to clean up and to set a clear agenda and legacy for this country.
So it will only affect the senators and the members of parliament?
Yes, only.
The other, leaders will
The county government will be intact. The presidency will be intact.
The judicial
will be intact. The MCAs, the executive, and the Wanjiho will be happy to
so
wait
it's a
for
by-election, but a massive
by-election. Not a general election. It's only by-elections, but multiple by-elections.
Now, looking at the, I like the word massive. Massive comes with cost. It comes with a budget.
Yes.
And we're looking at our country right now. We're in the midst of a pandemic, the coronavirus. Of course, we've spent quite a lot. How that money has been spent is a conversation for another day, but at least what we know is that we've spent a lot of money in just mitigating the spread of this particular virus. Are we in a position to fund a massive by-election if we are to go that direction, Martin?
We can do it. We did a repeat election in 2017. After the Supreme Court nullified the presidential election. And people are asking what will happen if the election has been nullified. The fear of the unknown, which is normal, human beings fear the unknown. But there is nothing. For 3 months, if you are not having parliament, they have been on recess, and life has still gone on. So, and you are not doing elections for the 6 seats. You are doing elections for Senate, 47 seats. You are doing election for 47 women rep, and you are doing election for the 290 members of parliament. That is it. So it's not as massive as when you are doing for the rest of the staff, And you see, the confusion and the contention normally revolves around the presidential election. So, and you'll not have now the president going out there to campaign, because he's seeking to finalize his term. So he will be out here. And it's also an opportunity for those who have been flexing muscle. Let's see if they have the numbers. But it also creates, puts DP Ruto in catch-22.
All right.
Because
we will pick up from there. I like how you've taken us there. Because, yes, this is actually time for us to explore whether we are ready to go into election mode, campaign mode, depending on how you want to look at it. Yesterday, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, in reaction to that advisory by the Chief Justice, David Maraga, said that dissolution of Parliament will necessitate a by-election in all constituencies. We have just talked about that with my panel this morning. But he goes ahead to say, given the expensive nature of elections, there does not appear to be any good reason for insisting on dissolution of Parliament. I will be getting a quick reaction on this particular statement from my panelists when we come back from this particular commercial break. Don't go too far. This is News Check.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more, like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted and always remember to taste the simple joys. Coca-Cola. Taste the simple joys.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Oh, sweetie, what if everything we've been thinking is just a misunderstanding and something has really happened to Ramon?
I understand. I get it, Juana. You want to think that way. He's your son. Unfortunately, it's not that way. The facts say otherwise, and Ramon is not a good person. Ramon? He's wounded. We need to take him to a doctor. Help me get him to a hospital.
How are we going to do that, miss? The closest hospital is more than 2 hours by car from here.
Do you want to know what I'd really like? To disappear from this planet. I want to go far away and not have to hear about Ramon ever again in my life.
In love with Ramon.
People gonna say all kind of things about you.
Weed them on.
When your booty got show me now. Baby, one time. Bossy baby, give me 2 times. Full 180. Crazy. a la botella. Let's go. Ha. I needed some with some bop in it.
Mamacita, where you at? I've been trying to reach you.
Choro, 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 choro. Get the power, get the power, get the power. Katoto shepu awe, ayawe, ayawe. Tekenya katoto, kamini tekenya, tekenya katoto.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
The boy deserves the truth.
Kama wewe hujui chochote kuhusu sugarcoat ukweli.
Nimechoka na uongo.
Something's not right about that relationship. I can call it that.
Saizi mimi niko interested kuhusu relationship yetu, if I can call it that.
I should pay Connor a visit.
Why would you do that? What do you aim to achieve?
Ma, please calm down and tell me exactly what happened.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us in studio. We are talking about the opinions that are shaping the advisory that was issued by the Chief Justice David Maraga yesterday to President Uhuru Kenyatta to dissolve Parliament for failure to implement the 2/3 gender rule. I'm hosting Martin Andati, a political analyst, and Henry Karauka, a constitutional lawyer. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for staying on. Before we went to that particular break, we were talking about, whether we are ready to fund a massive by-election, and I mentioned that a reaction by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, who actually said that there is nothing that there does not appear any good reason for insisting to dissolve Parliament. His argument is that it is actually, he's looking at the expensive nature of having elections in this particular country. Martin, I like your body language, so I'll just pick it from there. You tell me what you think about what the Speaker said yesterday. He's actually one of the people that the Chief Justice said he has written to the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Speaker of the Senate on quite a number of times, and since he started writing, they've not given him any good reason as to why they've not implemented this particular rule. So what do you think about his defense, if I may use that particular term?
Muturi has a job, so he knows that once Parliament is dissolved, he loses the job. So those are his fears. And what he's doing is scaremongering. Kenya is a developing democracy. And we set a pace. We were among the first few countries where the presidential election was nullified. And we went back for the repeat election, which the mainstream opposition boycotted, which was a big mistake, because you've seen what happened in Malawi. There was a repeat election after the nullification by the courts. And the opposition came in and won. So even here, our opposition may be blundered. So, IEBC has been conducting by-elections. And the same infrastructure. They conducted one in Kibra the other day. They conducted one all over the country. So the infrastructure for conducting the elections is intact. So all they need to do is to hire the people who are normally the teachers who normally work as the polling clerks and the returning officers. And it's also a way of stimulating the economy, because the politicians will have to spend a bit of money. So the youth will pick some free money out there. And you create some hype, After COVID, it will be very good if we have the politicians spending some of the stolen money they have stashed, so that the mwananchi can also reap, So it is an opportunity out there. I talked about the DP. DP is in Jubilee. Uhuru is in Jubilee. And they are the ruling party now, or what they call in majority in the American system. So if DP now, if some of his guys were denied the tickets and they were to run on parties outside Jubilee, it will mean that automatically they have found a way of now pushing him out of the deputy presidency. So, all those dynamics are going to come into play. And the president needs now smart people to look at the implications and see how does he now utilize this golden opportunity that has been presented? You know, it's also an opportunity of forgetting about BBI. Use this, sort out this issue, then now you bring in a new parliament and see which laws you need to look at. Because now, with the time, you can also now look at even now the timeline. You know, there was even talk about the 14-day window for the presidential election. It's not enough. So we need now. But you know, the Constitution normally is supposed to be just about principles. But because there is a lot of mischief and mistrust in this country, we actually want to capture everything in the Constitution. We even fixed the number of constituencies in the Constitution. It never happens anywhere out there. So we need, and you know, it's believed that the framers of the Constitution believe that once they have captured the main principles, the people who hold those offices will have enough integrity to do what they are supposed to do.
Even the word
yes.
shall.
Yeah, but you see, yeah, so here now you see they are already creating an excuse that because there is no timeline, so the president can now buy time and use it up to 2022.
All right.
That is not what the framers of the Constitution envisaged.
Let me take you back a little bit on something you talked about earlier, and I'd like you to weigh in on this matter, Henry. He talked about, yes, we can actually have an election at this particular time, but looking at the IEBC as it is currently constituted, does it have the legal, threshold to hold such an exercise?
Yes, there are challenges. I do agree, but still we can have by elections.
With the IEBC
we have a number
that we
of
have
commissioners who have resigned.
Okay.
But we have the chairman. We have people there to do.
And the court ruled that the commission is properly constituted.
And the court has made a decision on that. Remember, for the MPs, it is only returning officers who are supposed to preside over those elections, and presiding officers and other clerks, so the results can be sent to the chairman and the talent, and the results are given. So that's not a big problem.
In fact, the parliamentary ones are tallied at the constituency.
Precisely.
And announced at the constituency. It's only the presidential which is tallied
at the national level. Now, coming back to our Ngundi Speaker Muturi. One, he has a lot of interest in this matter. So he has vested interest. He has conflict of interest. He shouldn't wait for his turn. Let the president dissolve, then he will communicate to the IEBC within 21 days of vacancies in 290 constituencies. And my view, Achieng, is that there is no amount of money that surpasses upholding justice, social justice, and my view, gender law for 2/3, asking women to have 2/3 is not asking too much. Secondly, constitutionalism. How do we ensure that various statutory organs obey the rule of law, obey our constitution? Because this is what Wanjiku wants. And under Article 1, as we said, the power of this country, the sovereign power, belongs to the people. It's only that we cannot, enjoy those powers collectively. Thirdly, we have very, very serious timelines that were put by our constitution. Then drafters went around the country, and that is what exactly Wanjiku wanted, that we resolve these issues, these historical injustices. And because the timelines were done, the parliament ignored, or rather failed to do their work. That is why so many petitions were filed, and I'm so shocked. When Muturi is speaking, he participated in all of them, all those petitions. Even the Supreme Court and the Viceroy opinion, he participated. He sent a lawyer from the parliament. Likewise, the NG participated. And everyone participated. Kenyans participated. What did they do to resolve that impasse? They should have come back to the people and tried to negotiate with the Kenyans on how to handle that problem. If it is a serious legal issue or a cultural issue, there was a way to manage it. But we ignore a provision of the Constitution that was unconstitutional by itself. So my view is this: we have a lot of money to do a by-election. There is so much money that we have wasted through corruption, through scandals and so on, that can fund even 20 such elections. And what we need to know is that if the president dissolves parliament today, then the MPs are removed from national payroll.
Yeah, so the money
all that money
about 2 billion.
is many times more than
now
what we
turned
require.
into economists,
Yes.
looking at where this money is going to come from, and all of you seem to be agreeing that yes, we have the money to conduct even 20 such
even
massive
20 such
by-elections. All right, so looking at the journey to this 2/3 gender rule, Martin, it's taken long enough. Have we been faithful in actually realizing this particular dream, and what will it take for us to get there? He's talked about quite a number of times Parliament has failed to do this. Have we been genuine and faithful? If you're talking about inclusion, you're talking about fairness in leadership, bringing women on board, and those who feel discriminated, are we being genuine about this statement when we are making it as a country?
We haven't. And there were issues about the 2/3 gender issue. But the way the perception created out there is that it is about women. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. Because tomorrow you will have more women being elected as members of parliament. So the men will now need to benefit, And
so it's open.
Yeah, it is open. You've seen it even in
the
countries
minority
like
gender,
Rwanda, like in Norway, where you have more women than the men in some of those positions. And these are among the most progressive laws that we put in our constitution. So we need to try to be faithful. And the first step the president needs to do is when he reconstitutes cabinet, let him apply that law. So that, because cabinet has currently constituted, both at the CAS and at the cabinet secretary level, is not compliant. So what he needs to do, let him effect that law at the cabinet level and the permanent secretaries. Then with that, now the next step is to dissolve parliament. Then we go out there. We elect a new parliament. The MCAs, at the county level, the way Wakili said, it worked. So if we were able to actualize it at the county level, and even in Senate, the top-up was done well. So it is at the National Assembly where there's a problem. And they have been obstinate, and they are called, they don't turn up. The numbers don't add up. You remember when Duale was still,
or just
even when Duale was the leader of majority, he would bring it up, but on that particular day they don't turn up. So you see, if you have failed to do what you are supposed to do, then what we do is to send you home. So that, that is now those are issues of accountability. You must be able, if you have been given a job to do, you can imagine now you are supposed to be hosting this show. And you are seated in the house, and people are here waiting. The whole country, the whole world, and now you are on the internet. So the whole world is waiting for Achieng to be on the show, and you are seated in the house there, maybe making your hair. So that is exactly what these fellas have done. So because they have absconded duty, or they have failed to do what they are supposed to do, this is a wake-up call. Let's send them home, so that the next ones who come in know that if you don't do what you are supposed to do, then we'll send you home. Right. Then we'll also activate clauses like the recall clause. Those who don't perform, we recall you, and you go home, and people will not, you don't need to cause any chaos or anything. We collect signatures, we follow the process, due process. And one good thing about Kenyans, the levels of enlightenment are very high. So people follow due process. They go to court, any issue, and you've seen even the executive being taken to court where they have violated the constitution. And people go and get orders against the president. They get orders against the executive. So people now need to know that if we have a law, and it is in our constitution, we must stick to it.
All right, talking about orders, in this particular case, 4 court orders were issued, and still the 2/3 gender rule was not implemented. We seem to be having an issue with obeying court orders in this country. And I'd like us to talk about what then happens if the 12th Parliament fails to implement, the 13th comes on board, the 11th failed. Is there anything in law that can actually obligate the 13th Parliament to do this? Because it seems like it's a problem that keeps coming back. Are we always going to be in this particular cycle?
I think we are going to come out of this cycle, because
what do we do between now and the next parliament so that we avoid having this conversation again?
we are very lucky because we have the BMBI process. The BMBI should resolve such lacuna in our laws. And I believe if leaders are serious, we could have implemented this a long time. There is no difficult at all to, enact gender law because it favors all the parties. It does not only favor women, contrary to populist belief that was, fronted by our politicians. And one thing that I've realized in this country and in Africa at large, when it comes to enforcement, application, respect, implementation of the law, politics takes center stage. That is very unfortunate. And that is why I support this process to dissolve Parliament, because this is a wake-up call that nobody is above the law. The rule of law applies to everyone. The rules set in our constitution must apply to everyone. Nobody should be, allowed to disobey the law. As Martin put it very well, if you look at most elected leaders, for example, the MPs, 90% of their time, they do doing some other things that are not related even to their electorates. We would expect these leaders to concentrate on the people who elected them, to do their work in Parliament, that is enactment of the law, because they have all the facilities, they have all the experts, they have all the luxury of time to do so. So they should not assume that they were elected to do politics out there and refuse to do their work. So I think my honest view is the BMPI is going to resolve this problem one way or the other, and my proposal as an expert in that area, let's go the county way. If you look at our counties, the gender law has been perfectly implemented and everyone is very happy. Let us also apply it in Parliament, in our Senate, in our Supreme Court, in our High Court, in our magistrates' courts, so in our cabinet, everywhere, include even commissioners, county commissioners, and also our DCs. We apply everywhere, so at every area we have the gender rule.
All right. On the other side of the coin, in the event that President Uhuru Kenyatta opts not to dissolve Parliament and opts not to act at all, is there anything, any consequence, legal or not, that can be taken against him?
He would have violated the law. And that same Parliament can start the impeachment process. Yeah. Kenyans would, but you can also go to court. You get orders of mandamas, he knows it.
I know it.
But I think those options, you get orders to compel a public officer to perform a duty.
But Achieng,
the orders, he can violate, he can ignore those orders. But I can tell you, if he does not do what he's supposed to do, we will go to court. And Kenyans will get orders. Let him ignore the orders the way they have been ignoring. Yes. But at an appropriate, even Parliament has been ignoring the advisory. But you see, it has come to this. So even the president ignoring orders, at one time, it will come to bite him. So the law is very clear. Stick on the straight and narrow. It's not easy. The path to heaven, they say, is very narrow. It's not the best, but you see, it is always good to stick in the law, in the straight. And it might not happen now, but at one point in time, you are called to account.
But his term is expired.
No, but you see, he still has 2 years. He has 2 years, and people did Nazi and all those things. Yes. And that time, nobody thought that those issues will come to haunt them. But you see, they are paying the price for what they did that time.
True.
So, you can say that, you will ignore this, you will do this because of impunity. Even now, the next thing we need to do is to push for the enforcement of Chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. So, dissolve Parliament, clean Parliament.
Precisely.
Issue number 2, enforce Chapter 6. And all these crooks you see around, you will not see them. All these funny things politicians do. And people will be elected on a platform of what you stand for. Yeah. It will not be elected on issues of handouts.
Yes.
And you see a presidential, a parliamentary contest where there is no presidential candidate, because the presidential candidates will not be running all over. They are not running for that seat. So it is the people electing whoever they want to be the MP. So the people know, in the constituency, the people know who among those fellas will best serve the interests. I can tell you will get very good members of parliament.
I agree. But let me disagree with my colleague Martin. The president can only be accused of disobeying this law if, one, he writes a memo stating that he is not going to dissolve parliament, because the law does not give him a lacuna, a leeway, or an option to refuse to do so. Secondly, if he waits until expiration of the current term of parliament, then he will be said to have broken the law. But no, my honest view, he has the luxury of time, the way he did with the 41 judges, to just do it even next year. He cannot even do it in 2022, but he must do it before the current parliament, is dissolved by operation of
So either way, it has to happen.
Yes. Either way, he has to do it. But as to when, that is another issue.
What if it tallies with around the same time he is supposed to dissolve parliament in preparation for the next general election?
Yes, it will
it make any
perfectly in order.
difference?
It will be perfectly
But
in
then
order.
Will the advisory by the CJ have made any difference then?
If the term expires like maybe next week, he can do it today and it will be perfectly in order. Now, going to court, Martin, may not be the best option now.
You see, yeah, that's why I was asking then, what difference does the advisory by the CJ make?
If the AG goes to court now, because I do expect Kehara to go to court, if the AG goes to court to, overturn that recommendation, I'm sure no judge will listen to him, because there are so many petitions. The Supreme Court resolved that matter. It will give our MPs a whole 1 year to do the right thing.
And what will be the interest of the AG? Because the AG is supposed to be the advisor, the legal advisor
to be the legal advisor to the
government. So he is not the legal advisor of parliament.
All right, gentlemen, it's a matter of wait and see, just to see what the president is going to do. But I like what you've done this morning, just painting for us a picture of all the dynamics that are going to be shaping this particular big decision that the president has to make. And according to what you're sharing with me this morning, is that in one way or the other, it has to happen. It doesn't matter when, but it has to happen before the expiry of the term, of his term. Thank you so much for creating time for us this morning. I wish we had extra time for you to give me your parting shots, but let's just leave it there for now, because I want to pave way for the next interview that we're having today. It's all about advocating for the rights of those who are living with hearing impairment in the society. As we mark the Deaf Awareness Week, I'll be hosting a team from the Kenya Institute of Special Education. If you want to also learn a bit of sign language, this is actually the program to stay on and watch, because right after this break, we'll be coming back with that particular conversation. So stay with us.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Those three of them must be ridiculing me. They have ashamed the future emperor by escaping from the prison.
You know Dastan so well. Then why do you want to kill him?
I have done many things to get to this position. I have killed people. I have risked my own life. So what do you think? You can make me blurt out the truth so easily. Just go and call Dastan.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
The boy deserves the truth.
Wewe hujui chochote kuhusu sugarcoat ukweli.
Nimechoka na uongo.
Something's not right about that relationship, if I can call it that.
Saizi mimi niko interested kuhusu relationship yetu, if I can call it that.
I should pay Connor a visit.
Why would you do that? What do you aim to achieve?
Ma, please calm down and tell me exactly what happened.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Oh, sweetie, what if everything we've been thinking is just a misunderstanding and something has really happened to Ramon?
I understand. I get it, Juana. You want to think that way. He's your son. Unfortunately, it's not that way. The facts say otherwise, and Ramon is not a good person. Ramon? He's wounded. We need to take him to a doctor. Help me get him to a hospital.
How are we going to do that, miss? The closest hospital is more than 2 hours by car from here.
Do you want to know what I'd really like? To disappear from this planet. I want to go far away and not have to hear about Ramon ever again in my life.
In love with Ramon. Say all kind of things about you. We them all just shake up. Need to mush you and done to mush you. When your booty got show me now. Baby, one time. Bossy baby, give me 2 times. Need a full 180. Crazy. Trago y ella la botella. Let's go. Ha. I needed some with some bop in.
Mamacita, where you at? I've been trying to reach you.
Choro, 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 choro. Get the pago, get the party more, get the pago. Katoto shepu awe, ayawe, ayawe. Tekenya katoto, kamini tekenya, tekenya katoto.
Gear up and maintain a healthy, fit and active lifestyle right there at home by keeping up with Gear Up on Channel 1, 5:30 to 6 a.m. Monday to Saturday. Gear Up every day for every moment, and remember to stay home and keep safe.
Embakasi Utawala tuko locked. Ungem Utanyahururu Kasuku Massive.
Jeshi ya Nyeri Maua na Kura kwa locked mbaya.
Kigumo Ward na ambao wote wako ndani ya KBC Channel 1.
Akulaliki Wednesday bila the ref.
Mbotela Auta Idara Kitengela.
Kiambu County 33 Pipeline Meru anawakilisha.
Rongai Maboxa pale go down. Karatina Auta Mlolongo wana enjoy show. Lare Sub County Auta Githurai 45. Lanet Barracks tuko ndani yake. Okongo Auta Carnation Maragwa Seti
Nairobi. Fika wako locked mbaya sana.
Watu wangu wa Nakuru Ngwaro.
Auta Gilgil live kutoka Mazeras Bahati Massive.
Embo Thika Massive.
Siaya Shikambi Kakamega Bungoma County.
Kusia Boda
Kisumu City.
Malindi yote iko ndani ya the ref.
When I'm in Kenya, I tune in to the rave. Get your mind brave, focus, conscious.
Kenya,
East Africa.
Right.
Keep it locked.
Calling out to Africa.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying on as we take it even a notch higher, talking about the Deaf Awareness Week. We want to understand the significance of this annual event and, of course, talk about some of the activities that are lined up and how you, whether deaf or not, can play a part in advocating for the rights of those who are deaf in the society. And joining me to have this conversation, I'm hosting a panel of two ladies. The other panel was a panel of gentlemen. We were talking about the 2/3 gender rule, and I'm glad that we have women as well represented in the program this morning. I'll start from the far left, the lady in bright yellow there. Her name is Sharon Ingolo Nandi. She's a lecturer at the Kenya Institute of Special Education. Thank you, Sharon, for creating time for us. And we are having Lydia Chege. She's a manager at the Kenya Institute of Special Education. She's in charge of research. Thank you so much for creating time for us as well.
Thank you.
Now, we're talking about the Deaf Awareness Week. And I'd like us to start this program by just you teaching me how to say hello in sign language.
Yeah. Like, sign language is a very, very interesting language. And I just wish all people would communicate in sign language. Very, very simple. I just say hello.
So hello.
With a smile.
Hello. So if I want to say hello, viewers,
you just
what
say,
do I do?
Hello, viewers.
Hello, viewers.
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Hello, viewers. Wow. Okay, looks like I'll be learning a lot of this particular program, but it's important because yesterday we did a story from Kakamega County as the county launched the Deaf Awareness Week, and one of the issues they were saying, the people who were part of that work, they talked about the need to encourage people to learn the Kenyan Sign Language, whether you're deaf or not, whether you found yourself in a situation where you have to communicate with somebody who's deaf or not. It is important for people to take initiative and learn the Kenyan Sign Language, and we'll be talking about that in the course of this program. But let's just get to understand what the International Week of the Deaf is all about. Okay. I'll start. Any of you can chip in on that, just to tell us what this week is about.
Okay, maybe I start. Hello, viewers. The week of 21st September to the very end of it, to 27th, is the International Week for for Sign Language. And therefore, in Kenya, we celebrate Kenyan Sign Language because there isn't one sign language for the whole world. There's always the Kenyan Sign Language, the Ugandan Sign Language, the American Sign Language. But this is a week where there is creating awareness of the need to accommodate communication for everybody, and specifically then for the people who are hearing impaired or people who are deaf, who use a very specific language using signs. Yes.
So it's all about enhancing communication across board so that at least they can feel they're part of the society.
Yes.
And just to mention, we have our sign language, Lucy Maura, who is a part of this particular program. You can see her at the bottom of your screen somewhere there, just assisting us to pass this particular message across, and we appreciate the job that our sign language interpreters right here on KBC Channel 1 also do to ensure that all the programs we air, the news, everything also gets to be passed across to those who may not be able to hear. And now we want to talk about some of the things that are shaping this particular week. I don't know if there's a theme, an objective, an agenda that is driving this particular event. What is it? What is that single message that you seek to pass as we mark this particular week? Sharon.
Yeah, as we mark this particular week, we just want the community to be aware that the deaf are also part of this community, and they're very, very important. Just one question I would like to ask the viewers. If you met a deaf person, would you communicate? Would you smile and walk away? Would you frown and walk away? Another question, very simple. If you became deaf today, or if you gave birth to a deaf child today, what would be your reaction? What would you do? Just an awareness. Deafness is with us. Deafness is something we have to live with, and we have to accommodate the deaf in the society because they are part of us. They're there. How are we accommodating them? Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough for them? In some villages, we have one deaf person or two or three. How are they surviving in that particular village? Do we really care about them? Do we even want to know how they feel? Who is advising them? Who is talking to them? What challenges do they have in the society? Those are some of the things we're looking at, and we're trying to create awareness so that all of us together as Kenyans will just try and include the deaf in our society so that they are comfortable in all aspects. Yeah.
I like the questions you're raising about what do we do when we meet a deaf person. I was sharing with you earlier that recently I was having a conversation with one of our sign language interpreters. Her name is Lensa Odingo, and one of the things she told me that is unique about those with hearing impairment is they suffer a unique challenge compared to the other forms of disability, because when you meet a deaf person, it takes time. By the time you realize they have that hearing impairment, you already even maybe began a conversation with them. Yeah. I don't know what other challenges, Lydia, you may share with us on this platform that people who are deaf in the society face in their corners of the world, wherever they're watching this broadcast from. What is it that you feel is actually the biggest challenges that they face in their day-to-day life?
As you've said, first of all, there's the issue of a person who is deaf has got a disability, but the disability is not visible. So they look like you and I in every aspect. And as Sharon then was saying, when you meet this person, how do you start a conversation with them? And even when you're aware that this person is deaf, but you do not have the competence of Kenyan Sign Language, how do you communicate with them? Most of us will develop our own self-made signs, and those signs might mean something very different, and therefore they lack to that aspect of communing. Remember, a human person is a social being, and it is very challenging and actually very, let me say, very annoying when you're in this group of people and you don't know what they're talking about, you don't know what they're laughing about, you're so alienated, yet you're present.
Your world is silent.
Your world is silent.
Every other person seems to be moving around, talking and chatting, and you don't understand what they're saying.
You don't understand, and sometimes you have a pain. I'm looking at like now the situation of COVID. Everybody has these doubts. Every time you had a feeling in yourself, you'd even ask somebody, I'm feeling like this, because you're seeking reassurance that you are fine. But how does this deaf person tell you what they are feeling? Or when they come to an entrance of a certain place and they're supposed to follow certain protocols, and the person that they meet does not understand sign language, does not even know that they are deaf. One, they're seen to be maybe rude, and in most cases then, therefore, they are mistreated or abused. And I say that without fear of contradiction, because these are things that have happened, where people think like you're quiet because you're rude. But you're not quiet because you're rude. It's because you don't understand what is going on. You don't understand this language. And you're seeing people folding, frowning, getting annoyed. But you are wondering, why are they frowning? What is the problem with me? So that is a big issue. That is really quite a big issue. At the end of the day, a person who is deaf is a person and wants to feel like every other person. They want to be part of this society. But this society is not yet part of them. It is not part of them. Yes.
Because one of the things that also come out is, what is the difference in terms of experience for somebody who was born with this condition and somebody who acquired it along the way? They have a taste of the world, and then the world was shut down. Let me use that term at some point. They can no longer hear. What is the difference in terms of experience? Because you've interacted with both.
Yeah, now we have the deaf full, we call them like the profound. They were born deaf. These deaf have no experience about the hearing world. They have never had. Then we have the partials or the HOH, hard of hearing. These ones maybe they develop deafness later in life. I want to look at the two. What are the advantages of this person who now acquired deafness after some time in life? This one at least has some language, some speech. And so possibly, if possible, she acquired the deafness at the time she was like, let's say 9 years, she's able to talk well. She's acquired language. So that language will help this person in the society to be able to interact very well with other people in the society. But also, the negative part is this person may find it very, very hard to now enter into the deaf community and socially fit in. So we have that negative as attitude where now other people will be saying, now this one was hearing, now deaf. We have now that oppression. Then we're looking at a person who is now just born deaf, never heard, never talked. This person suffers more in the society. Just like Lydia said, we are social beings and all times we want to interact. Like, have you ever just thought a little bit? Possibly there's danger ahead there. And then we have a deaf person. We have a lot of noise there. Who will tell this deaf that noise there? Danger is there. No person. Other people may be avoiding the danger by going to a different direction. But can you imagine, this deaf person will just be going direct there. Why? She doesn't know. She does not understand what is happening there. So these people who are now profoundly deaf, they suffer a lot in the society because interaction is a problem. Sign language is understood by very, very few people in the society. And even at the same time, look at this child who is growing up and has different changes in the body. Let's say now they become youths. Who is advising them? Who is advising them? Who is telling them about the changes they're experiencing in their bodies? Very, very hard. We want to look at the parents of these children. Do they understand sign language? So sometimes it's a very, very sad situation. Sometimes in the schools, the parents bring the children in school and just leave them there. Even communicating with their own children is a problem. So you can try to imagine back at home, how is their experience? They suffer a lot in the society. But if we get the hard of hearing, these ones are better. Why? They can talk. Have you ever thought if you send a child to the shop just to buy sugar, how will you sign sugar? So can you imagine how a mother tries to explain sugar? And sugar is just signed sugar. Why do we sign sugar? Because every time you lick sugar, some small particles will be found on the mouth. So that's how we sign sugar. So in the society, they are left out. And they are very, very sad. But it's important for us just to try and include them in the society.
Talking about inclusion, and Lydia, I'd like you to talk about this matter. I'm thinking about them accessing essential services like at the medical facilities. Probably a deaf person is pregnant, they've gone for their antenatals. How do they even begin to interact? Probably they've been defiled, they've gone to the police station to record a statement. The communication, the processes, how are they taken through that? Are these spaces you're trying to reach out just to, enhance their awareness on the need to put up mechanisms to encourage such, spaces to learn the sign language, to have officers who can actually communicate with the deaf people? Have you reached out to these spaces?
I would say yes and no. Let me go back one step. Then I come to what you've asked. From what Sharon has explained, for me, this year, this particular week is very important this year. Why? The children have been home with the parents for the last 6 months. And as Sharon has said, some of us as parents do not have the competence of sign language. So coming to now what you have asked, the children have been growing. Girls have been growing, boys have been growing. They've been going through stages. And while they were at school, the teachers would take them through those stages of growth and development and prepare them for what is happening to you. What are the parents telling the children now? And that is why for me this week is very, very critical, so that we understand that learning sign language is not for the school. It is not just something that we domicile within the education sector. It is a social component that everybody should learn some basic sign language. Now, coming to the question of, are we doing something about this? I would say not much.
And those are just examples. Look at the corridors of justice. Look at, there are so many spaces that they offer essential services that I believe are quite a challenge for the deaf community to access. Have you reached out to these spaces?
I would say 50-50. We work closely with the National Council for Persons with Disability, and for the last 3 years, we've been training different cadres of officers in Kenya Sign Language. Why? Within the corridors of justice, there has been problems where there are no interpreters. Problems where there is an interpreter, but how much interpretation will that interpreter do? Will that interpreter...
Considering the legal jargon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And will they interpret for the defense or for the or for the judge? So it's good if more and more people, like if the prosecutors would be able to learn sign language, it would ease that up. We've trained a lot of people in the medical field, and I can tell you, when COVID came about, one of the things we were supposed to submit is the people we have trained within the health sector in sign language. And I can attest to it that it helped to a certain extent. But for sure, the deaf were locked out of COVID matters until several months. What I love is what the media is doing right now, because like for KBC, you interpret for all the information that you give out there, and therefore you have built a lot of capacity among the deaf as far as COVID is concerned. If you look at maybe your viewership, a lot changed, because somebody would know that I will not only listen to a certain station where they'll bring the interpreter when they're just talking about the numbers, but when they're talking about messages about COVID, then it will be there in KBC. So if all of us worked this journey together with the media, I believe we could build more. And as Sharon has said, sign language is not difficult, but we need to create room, we need to create space. And space has been created. You've asked, are we acting in all sectors? Space has been created in churches. I would like to really recognize some churches that have a mass for the deaf, and the deaf conduct the service. They sing during the service, and in so doing, some parents are able to pick some elements of sign language, and some children are able to develop competencies in sign language. But I think the bigger challenge I carry from here is what life skills, preparations have we put in place for the youth, the children that are growing from being children to adolescent and to being youth. Because some of these topics are very difficult to discuss between you and I, yet we are hearing, speaking, see
that's
people.
true. There's still a taboo issues in our
Yeah,
African
traditionally,
family.
yeah.
So these are no-go. You don't touch these topics in the African setup.
Yeah.
So imagine in a world of somebody who cannot hear.
Yeah.
So how then do you break it down for them? And if you look at what is happening, I believe if you look at even the rate of people who are being defiled, the people who are living with disabilities actually account for a larger percentage.
True.
Because they are considered the weakest target, the easiest target when it comes to such violations.
And
so
reporting will be difficult for them.
Yeah.
Remember, these girls, these young men, they are beautiful, they are handsome, they are working, but they are quiet. And therefore, I assume if I do this, you'll not be able to tell. Whom will you tell? How many people within the village then will understand sign language? So it is true what you have said, that there's a lot of abuse, especially for the deaf, generally for persons with a disability, but also for the deaf, the abuse is higher, because the way of reporting this taboo topic then is more complicated. Yes.
And even how to say no.
Yeah, and Serfine, I just
Their
want
no may be interpreted in a different way.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I just want to ask you a question. I just want to imagine there's a girl who has been raped, and she has gone to the police station to report. Do the police understand sign language?
Exactly what I was
So this
raising
girl
earlier.
is
How do
crying.
they even
This
write
girl
a
is crying. She has been raped. She runs to the police station. How many police understand sign language? So she'll stay there. Okay, just like Lydia has said, maybe in some churches we've tried inclusion, but I want us to think about back deep in the villages. Do we have interpreters there? And that is where a large number of our deaf children are. So in the churches, the children go to church, they look at what other people are doing, and they follow. Sit, stand. Have you ever imagined that they would want to sing? But how do they sing? Why? Because the deaf, they dance, they sing. I've been a teacher for the deaf for a long time, and I've trained the children to dance and to sing. So I'm just trying to imagine the situation that they are facing out there. It is very, very sad. I'm also trying to imagine, possibly, we have a deaf there who maybe wants to become a news reporter. Is it possible? Are there opportunities there? Which jobs do we expect these deaf to do? Are we ready in our different professions to train the deaf on the different careers that they want to do in life? Are we ready? How many news houses have deaf people there doing different jobs? In our hospitals, how many deaf are there working there? I can see many deaf are teachers. And the time they are teaching, they want to teach the deaf what? Children. But we also need to have different opportunities for the deaf, at least to work in different areas. So in the career field also there is a problem.
We'll talk about that in a bit. Because maybe the only challenge is the fact that they cannot hear, but they have all the other capabilities.
Yes.
They can do anything around. Yeah. And I've learned, this is singing.
Yeah, singing.
And
The way
dancing.
you just
Dancing
conduct. And you do it. Your body, Serfine,
facial
your body
expression
and your
becomes
face.
important.
You dance.
Yes.
You can
it
also
has to flow with the expression as well.
You can also use F and just dance.
All right.
It's beautiful.
Wow, looks like I learn a lot by the end of this program. But yeah, I want to talk about something that is quite sad. The stigma around, persons living with disabilities. Is this something that you're also battling with as you raise awareness about the rights of people with disabilities? What are some of the most unfortunate stories you've had or experiences you've encountered as you seek to advocate for the rights of the deaf community?
Let me start with the stigma around disability, because it has not gone away. It has not gone away. And I keep asking, we are implementing what we call the Sustainable Development Goals, which we're supposed to have achieved by the year 2030. I keep wondering whether we shall achieve. Like the singer of the song who says, we go 2 steps forward and 1 step backward, this COVID time has taken us some steps backwards. We did carry out a rapid survey in I think about 30 counties. And one of the things that we noticed about, we got a report on, is that children with disabilities, the stigma has come back. Because the parents now are worried about COVID, they have lost a livelihood, they are still looking for their daily bread, so the children have been hidden again. Some have even been tethered back like wild animals. Remember, that is where we came from some time back. Now, for the children who are deaf, we still have the issues of how do they fit in a house where people are not signing. Well, how do they fit in a house where people are not signing? And Sharon will tell you that because we are not signing in this house, this child with a disability would like to leave this house and go to, because they say those are speaking people. That is a terminology that is used very much by the deaf, that these are speaking people. And because you're speaking people, then you belong to a certain culture. And you have kind of put a wall between yourself and them. And they would like to leave this house of speaking people to go and visit that house or stay in that house or of fellow deaf. But COVID said don't visit. COVID said stay at home. So you can imagine.
So they're stuck with the speaking people.
They're stuck with the speaking people. And what happens? Anger will rise. Just like you will get angry when things are happening around you and you don't know what is really happening around you. So they will get angry. And one thing leads to another. And therefore stigma comes back. And there were siblings telling the other sibling that he or she likes being treated special. Why is he being given this amount of attention? Sometimes the parents got overwhelmed and they let the child be. When they let the child be, are they supervising whether this child then is attending online classes? And if this child is attending online classes, one of the bigger issues was, are they supporting this child? The answer is, if they don't understand sign language, they will not support this child. So this child will reach out to Teacher Sharon. Does the child have a gadget? If the child happens to have a gadget, then the child will be always with Teacher Sharon, because it is Teacher Sharon who understands me. So I'm in the house, but I am not in this house. So stigma is still there. And right now, it is right at home. So I'm looking forward to us going back to school next week, so that these children, I am sure some of them will run to school. They will run to school, like schools are opening on 28th. I'm sure they're asking the CS, when are we reporting back? So that they can go back to that community where they belong.
It's really unfortunate, because we consider home the best place to be, and here is a situation you're sharing with me, that there are children who actually, they can't wait to go to school because that is where they find safety. That is where they find identity and a community that understands them. I wish there was more that could be done to help them feel like they have a space in the outside world, not just in institutions that cater for people with special needs.
You know, like the stigma also starts from home. The society at large. How do they view this child? You know very well, in our traditional society, disability was looked at in the past as a bad thing. So the society, how do they look at this child? If two deaf people are walking and signing, all of us will turn, hey, deaf, look, here they don't hear. You see, already that is very, very bad. And the parents, do they accept these children? Many, many parents of these children are very, very poor. So sometimes, even just the living conditions at home are very, very bad. So the parents don't even have time with their children. Back in the schools for the deaf, when the parents bring the children, they leave them there. Some even for the visiting days, they never come to school even to check on their children. Do you know that the deaf children, they start boarding school at nursery class? That is 3 years, 4 years.
So they're detached.
They are detached from the parents
at a very early
Serfine,
age. And that has consequences as well.
Let me ask you a question. Is it possible for you to take your 4-year-old child and live in school? 5 years, live in school?
I cannot
for
even
one full term?
If I would be separated from my son at that age.
Yeah, but some parents are happy to do it. Why? They don't understand these children. Society feels that these children are not even good in the society, are not worth in the society. So the parent is very, very happy. The time the child is where? In school. I'm safe. I'm like a normal parent. So some of the parents don't even take the children to church. Some of the parents don't even walk with their children. But the deaf also, they need a lot of exposure. They need to know the outside world there, but who is showing them? School has helped these children a lot. And I want to thank KEMSA in a special way, because KEMSA is training many, many teachers in special education. And now we have many, many teachers like countrywide who at least have some special needs knowledge to help these children in school. So the children really love school. And the time they come into school, you'll just see the comfort, the stories, the signing, the smiles. That 3-year-old, when a parent comes, you'll just look at the child is smiling, the child is laughing. And you know, visiting days are very, very sad. A parent comes, chapati, rice there, soda, then they greet with the child.
No communication.
Communication.
They don't know how to break the wall and get into the world of this particular child to get what they've been going
through.
So
they'll just ask, there, home, there. Well, father, they know that. Well, he has greeted you. Then, finished. So they sit with the child, watch the child eat, finish. Then the parent will tell the child, bye. Then goes where? Home. Have they communicated? Which problems does this child have in school? What needs and wants does this child have?
What did they learn?
What did they
learn? Them, you know?
Yeah.
I really like the direction this conversation is taking, because it's opening us up not just to focus on what the deaf community is going through, but what, let me say, the speaking people need to do so that we are all included in the society.
Yes.
So that they feel like they have a space, they feel like the two of them can actually have a conversation that is intimate, that is deep, that goes beyond just hi, bye, I'm good, father, mother. You know, we need to get deeper and have conversations and laugh and feel like we can spend time together. I want us to talk about more about the Deaf Awareness Week. And now that you're talking about inclusion, there are people who may be asking, so if I want to participate, what activities are lined up? What will we be doing? How can I be part of this great week? you know, who are some of the stakeholders who are going to be involved. So what is lined up?
There is a webinar that there are different societies that have virtual meetings. There are different churches that have got different things that are lined up. But for me, I would say, let us not look at that one event. And I still would say, thanks be to COVID, we do not have that one event, which we normally have every year. Like last year, there was an event at a railway club just down here. But how many people? At the county level, there was some gathering in every county. I like the flagging off, like what happened in Kakamega yesterday, what has been happening with different organizations. But let's meet in this virtual space and therefore give everybody an opportunity to participate, so that it is not just a few people who are participating. I would say, like, look at this 1 hour that we have, where we are, I believe we are talking to so many people than if we were seated somewhere in one ground and talking to 500 people. So what is lined up is that there are a lot of webinar meetings that are lined up by different organizations, including Kenya Institute of Special Education. I know National Council for Persons with Disability is participating in several of them. So we look out for these messagings. They are being sent out there. But I would really wish that even the sign language interpreters in the different zones where they are seated, that they start an online conversation. Let's start an online conversation, because then, one, you will also learn a few signs if you go online to those webinars and such forums. But also we shall be tackling real issues. Why am I saying we shall be tackling real issues? When people don't face each other face to face, then behind a mask they are able to air out real matters.
That always happens.
And that is why I'm thinking that then this year is very unique and very beautiful.
So COVID is just a challenge, but it's
just a challenge, but it's bringing up other opportunities. Yeah. Let us discuss things online so that we are able to go on long conversations that include everybody, somebody who is in the office, somebody who is in the farm, somebody who is just idle at home. In fact, the ones who are idle at home will be very good, because they will keep the conversations going, and the rest of us will keep answering and asking for this sign. And Sharon, we're doing small clips and posting them online on different platforms. So that is the kind of conversation we are having this year, instead of looking for one place to sit. Allow me to go back to something that Sharon talked about on the parents. One thing that has remained deep in my heart is a training that we had 3 years ago, and the mother came in for the training in Kenya Sign Language. But then the father said, you want to train so that you'll be talking to the child alone. The father came to class. So I had the father and the mother, and they were coming to class to learn sign language, because they have one son who is deaf. I celebrate that couple. I really celebrate that couple, because they opened doors that had not been opened before. They encouraged other parents to learn sign language. And not only that, you can imagine the motivation they gave to their son, who felt for the first time, these parents are mine, because I can go to the kitchen and we converse with mommy. I can even express myself in what I would like to cook. She teaches me. I can have a drive with daddy as we talk men issue.
Right.
So that is what the father tells me up to today, that I'm able to have a conversation with my child. And therefore we are saying, could parents learn sign language so that they walk the child through the proper language than the homemade signs, which the child will not accept? Just like when your son goes to class 1 and teacher Ann teaches them, and then you say, like this, what does your son tell you? Mwalimu wako sema hivyo. That is not what the teacher says.
That is not what we are
So
taught.
can parents learn sign language so that they walk the right journey with the child?
All right, we're coming back to continue this conversation, but right now we want to follow up on something we have been tracking for you. This morning, the National Assembly Health Committee was visiting KEMSA warehouse in Embakasi. Let's just go straight there and listen into what the chairperson of the Health Committee, Sabina Shege, has to say.
In the warehouse. So then they agree on the prices. Then now they are able to either sell out. So for example, what we have said on the KN95, that the KEMSA was buying it at 700 shillings and selling it at 735. We are all aware from May the market flooded, and so the prices have gone down. So there's one issue of, yes, KEMSA might have good quality, but these items are readily available out there cheaper. So their target market, and they said it was a projection by the numbers that were projected by October that we are going to be at the peak. So they over-procured. And so the prices currently are low as 250 in the market. Them they're selling at 735. So who is going to buy? And that's the discussion we're going to have with the management tomorrow. But it is also difficult for us to tell them sell the dead stock, because some of the items even that are here in the warehouse are not negotiated. So really, we cannot tell that the loss is 1 billion or 2 billion because it's not even negotiated. So they need to quickly sit with the suppliers and negotiate and agree. If the suppliers are not willing to, might be by that price, are they willing to take away the items? That's a question we ask, and it can only be answered tomorrow, because we have seen the people, the officers we found here are not the officers who are involved in the actual procurement. So we need to meet the other officers tomorrow and the management so that they can quickly tell us the solution. Though they said because of investigation, a lot of things have stalled. They are not paying, they are not negotiating with the suppliers. We need to have a way forward because they have already received the items. And that's where the dead stock is coming in. So will the government be willing either to buy from them and distribute to the counties because there's still a need? That's one of the things that we can recommend. But at what price then is the government going to buy? Or are they going to be allowed to sell cheaper and then incur a specific loss, and at what percentage? So those are the things that we are investigating, and in our report we'll cover all this. Yeah.
Stocks are higher. I didn't quite understand.
Yes.
6.2 billion and 7.1 billion. Where is
the 7.1 is the total amount spent by KEMSA with their own resources, not what was allocated by the ministry, where they projected that they would buy the items and sell. So they did procurement with their own resources. What they have been able to sell so far is items worth around 1 billion. That's why now the 6.1 billion is what is here and not sold. So part of the items that they bought, they already sold them out because people are still buying. Even now, there are still people who believe in KEMSA's quality and they are still buying. But it's not as quickly as they had expected or anticipated that they will sell the items. That's why there's the difference between what was total number of procurement was 7.1. What they have managed to sell is around 1 billion, so they are having stock worth around 6 billion in the warehouse. Yes. Okay, the 1.5 billion from government that they received, the ministry gave authority to incur expenditure of only 758 million. That's another category. That the ministry, remember there was a letter that was between the PS and KEMSA. This was because the PS had to authorize the amounts that were to be spent then by KEMSA. So that's totally a different category. But KEMSA, out of their own wisdom, which we are trying to figure out at what point they arrived at the figure of buying things, goods worth 7.1 billion, decided to buy, outside what the ministry had authorized, they decided to buy items worth 7.1 billion, anticipating because of the numbers and the world figures that were happening on COVID, that they will be able to buy those items and sell them with their own resources, not what was allocated by the ministry. So there are two different purchases. One that was authorized by ministry. Ministry had already given 1.5, but allowed 758 million to be spent, and that was done. But KEMSA itself used its own resources, 7.1 billion, to procure other items, hoping that they will sell them. That is what they are calling dead stock now, because they have only managed to sell 1 billion worth of items.
Labda mwenyekiti, muda unaioma, visa vya corona vinapungua, kuna mali ya dhamana ya shilingi bilioni 6.2. So nekana kwamba imekunywa maji.
Hatuwezi sema imekunywa maji kwa sababu kweli visa vya corona zinaenda chini, lakini vile tumeona katika dunia nzima, tunaona zinaenda chini kisha zinapanda. Kwa hivyo hatuwezi sema hizo ama mali ambayo ilinunuliwa na KEMSA inaweza potea. Labda wanaweza uza kwa bei ambayo ni ya chini kidogo. Kwa hivyo kutakuwa na loss ambayo itapatikana. Lakini pia ministry bado wanaendelea, tunaona donation, bado ministry wanaendelea kununua, bado counties zinahitaji. Tulitembea kaunti ya Kilifi, ya Uasin Gishu, ya Mombasa na pia Kisumu. Kaunti bado zinahitaji, mahospitali mengi hayana hizi bidhaa ambazo ziko hapa. So lazima serikali ikimbie na watoe amri kwamba hizi bidhaa zipewe counties ama kutaenda vipi, lakini hakuna kitu inaweza potea kwa sababu bado COVID iko. Hata kama visa viko chini, bado tunahitaji kuprotect our health officers, na bado hizi ni quality ambayo ni nzuri, na kwa hivyo lazima tutoe tukizungumza na ministry, lazima sasa watatoa amri kwa KEMSA waseme hizi bidhaa zitafikia counties kivipi. kama ni kununua kwa bei nafuu, labda kwa market price, ama wao wenyewe watanunua kama serikali, alafu wapatie counties kama donations. So haziwezi potea kwa sababu ziko hapa, na pia market ama hospitali zetu zinahitaji hizi bidhaa ambazo ziko hapa. Lakini KEMSA wameshindwa kuuza kwa sababu sasa ile bei wanapeana ya market, bei yao ni mbaya, iko juu sana ukikompea na sasa ile market ambao bei ziko chini kiasi sasa.
What if suppliers refuses to negotiate?
Sorry?
What if the suppliers refuses to negotiate maybe?
I don't want to anticipate that. They will tell us because they have not even engaged the suppliers who have not.
Health Committee in a tour that is seeking just to find answers on the COVID-19 scandal, the money that was lost during this particular time. Today, the committee was visiting KEMSA warehouse in Embakasi to confirm claims by KEMSA board and management that all procured and donated consignments for COVID-19 are indeed safe in their custody, among other issues that they want to confirm, and queries will be raised, and they are seeking answers to those queries. We will be giving you details about what is coming forth from this particular tour as we continue with the day's broadcast. So keep it KBC Channel 1. In studio, I've been talking about the Deaf Awareness Week. And oh my, we've learned quite a lot concerning not just inclusivity, but sign language and what needs to be done to encourage the deaf community and you know, just sort of allow them feel like they're part and parcel of the society. What needs to be done to get into the spaces that offer essential services for them to also find it easy when they go to seek these services. And it's a conversation I've been having with two ladies, Sharon Ingolonandi and Lydia Chege. Thank you so much for staying on, ladies. As we're about to wrap up, unfortunately, time is not on our side. You know, I just want us to talk about the way forward, because it's 1 week, yes, but does it end there? Does it end after this particular week? What's the way forward after this particular week is marked? What do we need to be sensitive to as society? You can talk about anything from law to policy to just, you know, basic practice by the people in the society, that something that we need to implement so that we can make life easier for those who are deaf in the society. Sharon, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look. If all of us just learned some sign language, this world would be so beautiful.
So it's communication, basically.
It's just communication. I'm just looking at the smile on that girl who is so young and deaf. I'm just looking at the hug of that girl who is so young and deaf. Now, the deaf, they just want you to communicate. That bus. They just feel like now we are one society. By the time we are talking about we are one society, and you are talking, me, I am quiet. Now, which inclusivity is there? So just the way forward, we just want to say, at least we should try and include the deaf in all aspects in the society. I'm just trying to look at interpreters. At least we have tried. I can see interpreters in many of the news houses in Kenya, which is now something very good. I want to congratulate you for just putting the interpreters. They do a lot to the deaf. Before, the deaf would just watch and say, that one, not for deaf, for hearing. But now,
and these are issues that affect their lives.
Yeah,
news is important.
But for now, you can even, the time you're seated with them, you can see them saying, news, news. Even the children back in school, they wait for 7 o'clock to go and watch what? News. But before, they would just go sit up to the end. So we just need to include it. Like, I'm trying to think of hospitals, interpreters in hospitals, because I'm just trying to imagine a deaf with a disease. If you're sick, Serfine, there are some sicknesses you don't want to be publicized.
Yeah.
Like the STIs, they need to be confidential. But now, they must have an interpreter here who goes with them into the doctor's room. You can imagine telling a doctor how you feel with some diseases which are private. How would you feel? I would just wish that some of even the doctors, the nurses, I know KISE and National Council for People with Disabilities has trained like nurses, doctors, and different people. But what if the doctors could understand the deaf deep? Why? Interpreters sometimes miss on some things which are very, very important. So if we had interpreters even in hospitals, in churches, in all areas, then it would be better.
And I want you to talk more about that in case somebody is watching this program and they want to learn the Kenyan Sign Language. How do they go about it?
If you're just watching this show and you want to learn sign language, we have KISE, Kenya Institute of Special Education, which offers different courses on sign language. We have evening classes, we have day classes, we have full-time classes. We even have for teachers who come over the holidays to train in sign language. So it's possible for all of us just to learn even just the basics in sign language. I'm trying to imagine, now if this deaf goes inside maybe that room, alone with the doctor, it's possible for the deaf to open up. But they are fearing, if I go there with some sicknesses, I come out, this interpreter will possibly spread or other people will know. And then some don't even have the interpreters, so they get family members to go with them. After they finished interpreting for them, they go back to the society with now negative, saying this one, sick, she's almost dying. Have you ever imagined a situation where we have a deaf who has cancer and the interpreter is there? The doctor is saying, you have cancer and you have 2 months to live. The work of an interpreter is to tell the deaf what the doctor is doing, saying. Can you imagine if the deaf is told direct, now you have cancer, you have 2 months
because doctors are trained on how to deliver the message.
Yes.
But this interpreter, they don't have that expertise of, how to...
Yes. But the interpreter is not even supposed to change the message. They just say 2 months and then you are dead.
How will they receive that? I want us to, I just want to say something. We may think that learning the sign language is for us, the speaking people, is for the deaf people, for them to be able to communicate and to feel like they're part and parcel of the society. But for me, I'd like to look at it differently. It could actually be for us, because imagine what is hidden in that person. Yes. Imagine what we could be benefiting from what they have to offer, the stories they may want to tell, the experience they have. Imagine what is hidden in that silent world. How about if you learn the sign language and you can be able to explore what they have to offer society? I mean, it's not just about them, but it could be just about even us to benefit from that silent world.
Let me say that
as we wrap up,
Kenya Sign Language is the 3rd national language according to the Constitution of Kenya. Article 54. We have Kiswahili, which is our national language. We have English, which is our official language. And we have Kenya Sign Language, which is a language of this country by the Constitution. And therefore, Kenya Sign Language is not a language for the deaf. It is a language that everybody should learn so that we build a cohesive society. And I want to say that we have committed to leaving no one behind. And apart from committing to leaving no one behind, we've gone back to what we call in special needs education, the Salamanca Statement, where we are creating equality and equity for everybody. When we say everybody, it's whether they are deaf or whether they are hearing. And because of those kind of commitments that this country has committed itself into, then we are saying Kenya Sign Language is not a language just for this block of people who are deaf. It is a language that should be learned by everybody so that we can have conversations. Right now we are having conversations around the referendum constitution. I don't know what is going to happen now to parliament now that the president has been advised. Are we having those conversations that is inclusive? Is everybody participating, including persons who are deaf? Are they participating? And participating, it's not about them being interpreted for, where they talk and then somebody else interpret. Could they just join this conversation and show that happiness of the immediate feedback that they can be able to give, that they can be able to receive? And as you have said, once we have sign language, could we go to that silent world where that person who is deaf is able to write from that world and write to us, and we also write to them, and we listen to each other and pick what is it that they are missing.
And they are beautiful success stories.
They are very beautiful success stories.
There are so many beautiful success stories and the things that they are doing in the society that, you know, if we just take time to be sensitive and understand, then we can actually find it viable to give them an opportunity. There's someone who said once that disability is not inability. The disability comes when we create environments that are not conducive. We create the disability and make them even more at a position where they feel more disabled. It's not disability is not inability, but what we do is what make them unable to do some of these things in the society. We've run out of time for this conversation. I just want us to wind up. You tell me what my sign language name or sign name is, because President Uhuru Kenyatta has a sign name, Raila Odinga has one, Paul Mwite has one.
Now, in the deaf society, we have names. Like me, I'm Sharon, Ingolo, Nandi.
Wow, that's a lot. Those are the letters?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are just finger spelling,
okay,
the letters of the alphabet. But we have very, very many Sharons. What's different about this Sharon? That's my sign, Sharon. Why am I Sharon? The first time I met the deaf, I had a sparkling watch. So they gave me this sign, Sharon.
Oh, so they're the ones who gave you?
Yeah, the deaf are the ones who give sign names. The hearing are not allowed to give the sign names. You're not deaf.
Okay.
So it's the deaf themselves who give you the name.
As an identifier.
So yes, I am Sharon, but I am this. And they give you a name. They look at you.
And identify
possibly, something
unique.
Something that is special on you. Possible you have a dimple here. Then possible add with your name. Like name yours is Serfine. That's your name. I'll do it again. Serfine.
I'd be lying if I told you I can master that today.
So the
but I'm planning to learn more.
Like Lydia, some of the deaf in Kericho have given her a sign, Lydia.
Lydia.
It's with an L.
L.
Oh, okay.
Why? Her name starts with L.
All right.
Lydia.
So they are the ones who are supposed to give you this.
Yes, they give you this.
Lensa told me this before we began the program. I asked her to tell me what my son name is so that I can be able to use it on the program. But she told me that it is not the speaking people to give you a sign name.
No.
It is the deaf who ought to give you a sign name, and you have just confirmed that. Thank you so much for creating time for us this particular morning. It's a conversation we should be having regularly, not just on the Deaf Awareness Week, and we are looking forward to be picking this up from where we've left it right now, because there's a lot, even in terms of how they're faring in the career world, in business and all that. We will be talking about that in the near future. Thank you so much for creating time for us. We now want to pave way for the Swahili version of the program Tamrini. Nancy Okware will be taking you through that. My name is Serfine Achieng Ouma. I'll stick with that for now, but I'm going to work on getting a sign name very soon. It's a wrap. Our sign language interpreter has been Lucy Mwaura. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.